So if Vladimir Putin was going to put out a book, kind of like the How to Win Friends and Influence People book that was very popular, Dale Carnegie, it might read something like How to Conquer Neighbors and Influence Elections. And we're going to look at his playbook, and we're going to start here looking at Azerbaijan and Armenia. In fact, here, this is about Armenia, but why Armenia? So the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine has recently classified a telegram signed by Major General Zemsk, the acting chief of Russia's Southern Military District. The telegram contains an order concerning the urgent reinforcement of Russia's base in Armenia. But why Armenia? We'll get to that in a moment. Let's look at this. There was some back and forth here in the last week in Azerbaijan. On June 27th, there was this raid in Russia's Yekaterinburg where 2 Azerbaijani nationals were killed, 9 arrested, several others injured. The Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry voiced a strong protest to Russia, condemning the actions of Russian law enforcement as ethnically motivated violence. And then we saw that just after that, FSB agents disguised as journalists were arrested during a raid on Sputnik office in Baku. Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan. Security forces raided the office of Sputnik Azerbaijan, a branch of Margarita Simonyan's Russian propaganda agency in Baku. And then we saw on TV, they were saying, this is not 1937. We are independent. That kind of criticism of Putin just doesn't happen. But anywhere in the Russian mirror, in the Russian world, in the place where Putin has kind of his thumb on the elected leaders, but it just did. Meanwhile, information appeared that former Azerbaijani MP calls for a Turkish military base to be deployed in Azerbaijan. Like, okay, that's because the Turks can protect them. They're kind of sandwiched between Russia and Iran, and that's not a great place to be. It could be even leased to another ally, the Pakistani Air Force, which possesses nuclear weapons. This approach is known in political science as peace through strength. Simply put, it's time to say, forget it to Moscow and Tehran's plans for Azerbaijan, this MP said. Okay, like that's talking back to Putin like that doesn't happen very often. Okay, so where is Azerbaijan? Again, it's here between, this is Chechnya, part of Russia, and Azerbaijan, and then Iran below that. Armenia is here. This is where the Russians want to beef up their presence, kind of to intimidate Azerbaijan. And remember, that also helps intimidate Georgia, so it's kind of a twofer. Now, Russian paper here, this is just a couple of days ago, one Russian paper on tensions with Azerbaijan said, although Azerbaijan's leaders are not openly criticizing Putin, this is a direct challenge to Putin and Russia's leadership. Well, they kind of are starting to challenge Putin. Here, Russian propagandists, and I showed this the other day, Mardin said that Azerbaijan never existed. Same thing that they said about the Ukrainians. Look at this. I went to look into it, and where's the history of this great Azerbaijan that was supposedly interrupted by the Russian Empire's military intervention? I found nothing. There was no Azerbaijan, and I couldn't even find an ethnic group called Azerbaijanis. The very ethnic identity we now know as Azerbaijanis was apparently also invented by the Soviet authorities. Same kind of things that they're saying about the Ukrainians. Exact same playbook. Okay, Gherkin on the conflict. Now, Gherkin's a Z nationalist patriot who is not a good guy, but even he's saying the fact that Russia is not at all feared or respected by such neighbors as a completely artificial state, again, they're using the same rhetoric there, of Azerbaijan, even formally friendly with the CIS. This is also natural after 3 years of the extremely successful special military operation. What on earth? Okay, now Lukashenko, he's pulling his weight on Putin's behalf, and he's saying this about his neighborhood. Lukashenko stated that the Poland and Baltic states are being turned into another military testing ground after Ukraine. And if they want to disappear from the world map again, that will be their choice. Huh? So you're threatening Poland and the Baltic states after Ukraine, and that's going to be their choice? Because what? Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and Poland are allowing themselves to be turned into yet another military testing ground, just like Ukraine. These are countries of no interest to the West in any other capacity. That's exactly how they want to fight against us, including against Ukraine and Slavic peoples. We've always been a thorn in their side to fight on someone else's land. If they, that's Poland and the Baltic states, want to disappear from the map of the world again, that will be their choice, says Lukashenko. Way to win friends and influence people, right? Let's look at the next big story, and it's kind of what's going on with the BRICS, and then what Trump is doing, and then what Trump's maybe not doing that he should be doing. Okay. Be brave, leaders. Embrace de-dollarization. Create an alternative to SWIFT. Decouple from the U.S. empire. Okay, so the world trades in dollars because the dollar tends to be a safer currency than pretty much most other currencies around the world. Like, would you want to actually trade with Russia in Russian rubles, knowing that the ruble can go up and down like crazy, or with any of the other currencies in the BRICS? This has been talked about for a long time. Here's a meme talking about how the BRICS developing their own payment system as an alternative to the U.S. dollar and SWIFT. Now, the Russians are cut off from SWIFT system, and they have had to figure this out, and it hasn't really worked out so hot for them because, again, who wants to trade in the ruble? 2009, formation of the BRIC group assembled to tackle U.S. dollar dominance. 2014, establishment of the new development bank. And we're still waiting to 2019. Russia proposes a BRICS payment system to use national currencies and bypass SWIFT. And then 2025. And so far, we're close. Trust us. You'll see any day now. It's just not happening. And there's a reason for that. Nonetheless, the BRICS have announced that they're going to have their own trading exchange bank, which good luck. I don't think it's going to work very well. Donald Trump has threatened to impose additional 10% tariff on any country that joins the anti-American BRICS agenda. Any country aligning themselves with the anti-American policies of BRICS will be charged an additional 10% tariff. There will be no exceptions to this policy. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay. So, I mean, then you see Sputnik saying, does the USA really believe they can defeat this trio? Well, on trade, this trio isn't really so much of a trio. Like what she trades with the United States is way more than what she trades with Russia. And same with India. I mean, India's trade with the United States or with Europe or whatever is way different than what it is with. But Putin's looking to realign things to have his own bloc so that he can actually be a major player in the world. Meanwhile, we see this big news. Trump's favorite newspaper, the New York Post, has called Russia a dying tea state in a direct message to the U.S. president. Okay, it was a direct message to the U.S. president. I'm not sure if the Post, which is generally favorable toward Trump, is his favorite paper, but they said some great things in here. Vlad gave his answer to peace, Mr. President. We must rearm Ukraine. Okay, let's listen to what they had to say. Mr. President, we know that you understand the primary obstacle to Russia's aggression. You said that you were disappointed in the conversation with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and that you didn't think he's looking to stop. Putin again insisted he was unwilling to commit to a ceasefire until the root causes of the conflict were addressed. For Vlad, the root cause is the existence of Ukraine. That's right. That is the root cause. It's the very existence of Ukraine. So why, Mr. President, is your administration punishing Ukraine? Great question. The Pentagon has halted the anti-missile and drone weapons needed to protect the civilians of Kyiv. You remember the desperation on the face of the Ukrainian reporter you touchingly spoke to in the Netherlands, her fears for her husband and her family. Why are we threatening to abandon her? Great question. Officials claim we have a weapon shortage, but many of these arms were already allocated. Some were already in Poland. Ukraine is paying for them. The partly seized from Russian assets and European grants, a stimulus to our industries to make more. In fact, our military can use that money and the intelligence is gathering from Ukraine's successful resistance to make better drones and anti-missile technology. It builds the foundation of the Golden Dome. But most importantly, Ukraine's fate sends a message to the world about America. Russia is not an economic superpower to be unlocked. It's a dying tea state. That's right. Putin is willing to spend the blood of his people in a last gasp for empire. If we let him succeed, if we help him succeed, it won't just threaten Europe, it will tell China that our alliances are fickle, that our patience is short. And we shouldn't be doing that at all. We don't need aid. We don't aid Ukraine instead of fighting China. We aid Ukraine to thwart them. That's exactly right. And that's what many people just don't seem to understand about what it is when you're aiding Ukraine, when you're supporting Ukraine, you're actually preventing World War III. I've had friends that have said, well, I don't want to have World War III. Well, I don't want to have World War III either. That's not the point. The point is that, like, if you do this thing, you can tell them that you can show them this is a bad thing to be doing. And I'll show you an illustration at the very end of how this works. Okay, one missile saved in a warehouse today is 50 we'll have to fire in the future because of this access. That access was strengthened. Yeah, that's not where you want to be. And so, again, and here's Andrea Yermak saying thank you to the journalists at the New York Post for their clear stance and support for Ukraine. They published a powerful and just editorial, and I'll give kudos to everyone who shares this important message. Right, that is actually a really, really important message to be sending. Okay, now with that, I want to show you an illustration. Unless you do something about bad behavior spreads. So this woman is just, shooting her cart off. And so the security guy in the parking lot says, look, take it back. You got to put it, like, there's a cart, like, row of carts, put it in the cart. And he's unhappy about it. She's unhappy about it. She doesn't want to do anything about it, but reluctantly. So he starts putting more out there. And putting more out there. I've felt like doing that to people too, but I'm not deputized to security by any mall operation. So, but the point here is that if you don't check when people do bad things, guess what? They're incentivized to do more bad things. And that's bringing us full circle to where we are with how to conquer neighbors and influence elections. This has been his playbook because he hasn't been checked, and he's been doing this. Russia didn't expand to 11 time zones by offering flowers to their neighbors. All right. Tell me what you think about this. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.